This is not the church of Joseph Smith.
Alright, Travis Wayne Goodsell. Because I didn't do my videos before I went running, I was able to get caught up on my news and such from last night on YouTube, and already did the news coverage with the Herbert video. So this one, we'll do Joseph Smith Sr. again. It's crucial on YouTube to put in the right title, because YouTube is telling me that the majority of you who come to my videos come to the videos by searching on YouTube. And so putting Joseph Smith Sr. is not catching your attention, for Mormons even, who are my target audience. Mormons are not interested and focused on Joseph Smith Sr. So I'm going to try a different approach with the title, Joseph Smith Family Saved America, and see if that gets your attention. And I'll revise or update the previous video I did, telling you guys about how Joseph Smith Sr. saved America, single-handedly saved America, because he was the master mason in the key city where it all happened. Canandaigua, and I butchered the pronunciation, I know. But Canandaigua, New York, that's where Joseph Smith Sr. was a Freemason of the York Rites Lodge. And that's important for church historians and history critics of the church. Everybody's missed this, and so nobody fully understands what happened in church history. And the critics, they like to claim that Joseph was a practicing witch and warlock, and the family was just evil, and others try to say that Lucy was the glue that held the family together because Joseph Sr. was a bum and a drunk. And so all this misinformation and disinformation is going around, even by the church itself. As the church has just held their conference and are rewriting history. The first vision is being rewritten. Go back to Elder Ballard's talk with your Joseph Smith history from the canon scripture and compare. You'll find when you get to the point where Jesus is talking to Joseph about the different religions, Ballard took a huge hinge point. That was what Elder Eyring called it. We're hinge pointing away from our church history past. We're hinge pointing away from the scandals. We're hinge pointing away from all the crimes we're being accused of. We're hinge pointing from the old into a brand new religion with the idol God who we're calling Jesus being built upon the cornerstone of the church. And Mormons fell for it. Unbelievable. So the reason why I'm trying to point out that Joseph Smith Sr. was the hero who saved America, the American patriot who saved America from destruction, is because we are now in that destruction that they failed back in 1826. They've now succeeded because the Mormon Church is gone. It died with the murder of Joseph and Hyrum Smith. And so that's why it's necessary to again remind Mormons about this. So Canandaigua, Joseph Smith Sr., in 1818 became a Master Mason and was assigned the Canandaigua Freemason Lodge. That's what happens when you become a Master Mason. You get your own lodge. And so Joseph Smith, in 1842, got his own lodge for that purpose, is because there were lots of Mormons who had been Masons, and Brigham and Heber were able to plead the case with the Grand Master of the Warsaw Lodge to make it happen for that purpose. But Joseph was not following proper procedures and protocols, I went over that video, so we're not going over that, other than one particular distinction. And so William Morgan, you may not have heard about him, you may have heard about him in passing. He's the one who came to Western New York to the Canandaigua Lodge because that's where he was arrested. And so he went to Joseph Sr.'s lodge to warn Joseph Sr. as the Master Mason and his lodge members about the threat to America. That the Illuminati, founded on May 1st, so we're coming up on the anniversary, as Governor Herbert wants to open up Utah now on May 1st, and others have also wanted to open up things on May 1st. Not a coincidence. This is the threat to America right now, which came from that early days. Johann Adam Weishaupt, founder, with 4 others, total of 5, started the organization. They were fed up with the Catholic Church and the darkness and the blindness and the slavery and the extortion and the atrocities and the crimes committed by the Catholic Church. And they took it upon themselves to be the avengers of death and mayhem and destruction, and to take over, in the course of time, the whole world, establishing their new world order. And so they had good intentions in the sense of saving the world, but their plan to rule the world is no better. Taking away agency, slavery, the prostitution, all are part and parcel of the New World Order. So not dissimilar from the Catholic Church. And so what you have is Germany finding out that it's this organization and puts out a all-points bulletin, shall we say, to get these guys and lock them up, stop them at all costs. So they are forced to then go underground in secret, and as well as branch out to leave Germany and pursue their plans in other countries. And so they get to England, infiltrate Scottish Rites Lodge in England. They tried York Rites, but were unsuccessful, and were able to get into the Scottish Rites, where Nathan Rothschild was a member of. And they then connected with him. He became their money man. This is where the Illuminati comes from, but they've all messed it up in explaining the full ramifications of this group and their impact in the world right now, and that this is the cause of this group. And so the 1812 war was funded by Nathan Rothschild, which got the British Army to come to America, burn the White House, if you're familiar with that. Not Canada, as Trump said. And in that 1812 war, William Morgan was a captain under General Andrew Jackson, who became president, and helped put a stop again to the central bank, because the Congress of the United States stopped the central bank here in America, and that pissed off Nathan Rothschild, because he's in control of that, and so he caused the war in 1812 for that reason, and that's a summary. But and so William Morgan knew through Andrew Jackson in that 1812 war of the plot to use the Scottish Rites, who had been infiltrated by the Illuminati, to then come over to America and infiltrate the Scottish Rites lodges. That's why William Morgan, as a York Rites member, and he eventually became a 7th rank Royal Arch degree, but he was in the York Rites, and thus went to the other York Rites, Joseph Smith Sr.'s lodge, to say, hey, we've got a threat to America that's underground. It's not known in the public realm, and they're infiltrating the Scottish Rites here in America to then rise up into political offices in the states and in the federal government, so that they would eventually take over the presidency. That's why the inverted pentagram points to the White House. It's because the Scottish Rites Lodge, which is between the horns of the inverted pentagram, was built there in Washington, D.C. That's the Scottish Rites. They use the symbolisms to identify themselves. And so they're not very secretive if you know the signs to look for. And that was their plot, was to take over the United States with the presidency, to establish a monarchy. And hold on a second. Because they didn't want America with their rebellion against England and their attempts to do away with the central bank that Nathan Rothschild's was a part of in controlling. And so, yeah, they needed to control America and destroy the new type of government that America was trying to become. And so 1826, William Morgan gets wrongfully arrested on a couple of different occasions. As a warning, back off, do not write your books. He was going to write books. The Batavian Press, with David Miller, he had paid William Morgan to publish his 2 particular books on the subject matter. The other one had to do with the York Rites, which are the Knights Templar of the York Rites, which is the highest rank in the York Rites. The Knights Templar came to America back in 1362, according to the Kensington Stone, or was it 63? And purchased the land from the Native American Indians. The Kensington Stone is a contract agreement for the sale of the land east of the Mandan tribe in the Dakotas. And so they then went and buried treasure plates. Like gold plates? Exactly. In Little Egypt, as it's called today. In the caves there in the national park, which is now a national park since the 1920s or 30s. when it was officially declared a national park. That just happens to be the area of crossing, the crossroads of the two total solar eclipses over America. The first one has already happened. The next one is in 2024 on April 8th. And so they knew that X marks the spot to restore the kingdom of David with the Holy Grail, the blood heir to the throne. Not a supernatural being from another planet, a mortal man who is to be born on earth in a future time to then rise up and claim the throne, to restore the kingdom of David, which is both government and religion. And so William Morgan gets arrested. They were giving him death threats. So Joseph Smith Sr., as the Master Mason of the Canandaigua Lodge, designed a plan to secretly remove William Morgan out of the country to save his life. Joseph Smith Sr. then would take over the publications of the warning that William Morgan was intending to give to America. And Joseph Smith used his cooper shop, and if you purchase my book, as I've seen some people do lately, understand you have to also incorporate my videos in the playlist called what has Cooper Shop in it, because that corrects the information in the book, as I again found more information to explain the narrative better. And so his cooper shop was used to obtain copper for the barrels storing gunpowder to be used to stock up for this attempted coup d'etat of America. But the anti-Mason movement occurred, and the Mason temples, both York and Scottish Rites, were burned to the ground. Almost all of them. It was a reporter that had published a story that was kind of exaggerated, but not too much. And that scared the populace, and thus caused the riots and the burning down of the Scottish Rites temples and the anti-Mason movement, which tried to get Andrew Jackson from becoming president. And so it almost backfired, as the people didn't understand that Andrew Jackson was one of the good guys, and yet they kept fighting him the whole time as president. But finally, before he ended his second term, succeeded in doing away with the central bank. But then, of course, we got a central bank back again after he left office. So much good did that do. And so people did not understand what really happened with William Morgan, and just assumed that all Freemasonry is bad, and didn't understand that the York Rites came from the Knights Templar, who were going to restore the kingdom of David, the New Jerusalem in America, in southern Illinois. And so Joseph Smith Sr. Takes over the publication of William Morgan's intended books. There are two of them. It wasn't just a threat to America. It was also about the Knights Templar purchasing the land in America for the New Jerusalem from the Mandan tribe Indians. The Mandan tribe had Chief Great White. And so yes, the White Indians. So the Book of Mormon is that result. It's the combination of black and white Indians to help illustrate that Indians are not sub-creatures to be exterminated as we expand westward, but that they are human beings and that they came from the same source origin as the white man Gentiles in America who colonized it. And so that's the reason why there's all the talk about Flint and curses of dark skin. It has nothing to do with racism. That was Brigham Young who altered it. And so the Book of Mormon was specifically written with those two combinations, that America is supposed to be the promised land. And you see that theme over and over again. Lehi leaves the promised land to go to a new promised land. Lehi then says that we need to go back to the old promised land, get the Bible, and bring it to another new promised land. And then once they're in Bountiful, Nephi takes over. Oh, we're now going to leave this promised land and go to a new promised land. And then once they're in the Americas, Nephi again says, well, my brother is trying to kill me now, just like the Jerusalemites tried to kill my father Lehi, and so they left the promised land to go to a new promised land. And then the Lamanites caught up to them in the land of Nephi, and again they had to leave the promised land to go to a new promised land, and they found the Zarahemlites. So it's a pattern throughout the whole Book of Mormon. And that's the warning message they're trying to give you, is that there is a threat coming to America to destroy mankind, to take over after the destruction. And that's the Illuminati plot. And they infiltrated. And so when you get to the Gadianton robbers, they're Nephites, like brothers. Scottish Rites Masons are brothers. And yet this Kishkumen Gadianton combo create a secret society within America and pillage, plunder, rise up in government office and assassinate the chief judge, Kennedy, and establish a king, King Jacob, on the throne, as the United States is fractured into different tribal states. And that's what the Book of Mormon is warning us, is that that threat in 1826 is going to happen again. And Joseph Sr. used his son Joseph Jr. as the person to establish the kingdom in preparation for this coming attack on America again, so that there would be an army of Israel, the elders of Israel, who would be ready to save the Constitution. Remember, Constitution will hang by a thread? That's the whole purpose for the organization. And they used the cover of a church for that end. And so Joseph Smith knew and understood his role, as he blew it with 116 pages. Martin Harris was on the Anti-Mason Committee in Palmyra, and Joseph blew it with 116 pages. And Senior was pissed, because this is a direct threat to America, and it's essential that this book get published. And his son was given a distraction opportunity to help prepare him for taking over the organization. that they were going to establish with the book. And Joseph Smith had his firstborn son die at that same time period, and the Methodists kicked him out of the Methodist Church, which was the church of Emma and her family. And so they had to leave Harmony, Pennsylvania, and then move to another place that Joseph accidentally called Harmony by the Susquehanna River. And so you have to look at that playlist where I make that additional insight into the original church history, which is not in the book either. And so the book finally got published. They were able to get Martin Harris to pay for it because they kicked him out of the process, and then came back with the final publication saying, here it is. Oh, sorry, the plates are gone. Angel took them. Angel Nephi, not Moroni. Joseph Smith Papers, Mormons. And what else do I need to bring out? Heber C. Kimball. He's Scottish Rites. But he's claiming that the lodge in his town was a York Rites. He's lying, and we know he's lying, because he says after rising up 3 degrees to a Master Mason at his hometown, which he should have been assigned a brand new building for himself. And it's possible that one was being built that got destroyed in 1826 was going to be for him. It was built a year before, but there's no indication that he was put in charge of that. We don't know about that. We just know there was one there in the area where Heber C. Kimball lived. A brand new building that got built. And it was close to where Brigham Young moved to after 1826. And so he was in Scottish Rites territory. So his claim to York Rites was false. And so you don't rise 3 ranks in 1 year. Joseph Smith Sr., for example, names his son Hiram, spelled after Hiram Abiff of the Mason Passion Play, in 1800. And Smith Sr. did not become a Master Mason until 1818. Now granted, Smith was moving around, having to go from job to job, and so he didn't have much time to focus on a Mason lodge until he moved to Palmyra. And so he had a couple of years in Palmyra to advance to the membership, if not having been a member previously, and then becoming advanced to the second rank, so that 2 years pass where he then gets raised to the Master Mason level, and that's when he is taken care of as a family unit. And if you read the book written by David Miller to compensate himself for the loss in investment into William Morgan, he claims that William Morgan wrote the book about the first 3 levels of advancement in the York Rites. And that was the book he published. Illustrations of Masonry, is it? By William Morgan, or said to be by William Morgan. And again, that's not the book William Morgan was going to write. That's what David Miller wrote so that he can get some money back, trying to capitalize on the fear of the populace as well. And And so in that book, you see how Joseph Smith had influence and respect and authority as a Master Mason in Canandaigua through that book. And so that's why, as a Master Mason, he was given that farmland in Manchester after struggling to survive in Palmyra, because he had been loyal in the Freemason movement, that they said, hey, we'll raise you up and we'll give you the Canandaigua Lodge to become the Master Mason of. And he got the horse and buggy, so he was able to travel. And then when he got the Canandaigua Lodge, Hiram Smith was then able to become a member of the Palmyra Lodge, because you can't share family at the same lodge. That's why Joseph Smith never became a Mason, is because Hiram already had Palmyra, and there wasn't an extra car to loan Joseph to go driving around with, which would have gone to Hiram anyway. And so that's the real history of the Mormon Church in a nutshell. That took me 31 minutes. And what you have in 1842 is the aftermath. Joseph let his guard down. He had been arrested over and over again falsely because of the Scottish Rites that had infiltrated his organization. In July 19th, 1840, Joseph knew that among his loyalists there were betrayers. And it was Brigham Young and Heber C. Kimball, who were of the York Rites, or the Scottish Rites. And Joseph said, we need to build the cities of Zion and New Jerusalem in southern Illinois before the coming of Christ, the Anointed One, the man-child, the royal blood of the Holy Grail. If you've seen Dan Brown's video or movie about the Holy Grail, he explains it, but doesn't quite fully understand it. And that's why he should have done a version with Joseph Smith involved in it. But he passed it up. Went to DC instead to do his lock key or whatever it was called. So it was Brigham and Heber who went to the Warsaw Lodge to say, hey, we have a bunch of Scottish Rites who had been displaced and disbanded with the 1827 or 26 anti-Mason movement. We would like a lodge. We've got a whole ton of people to join the lodge. And he said, well, you can meet, but no lodge. So the next year, here you go, here's your lodge. Then Joseph Smith was murdered in 1844, and so they had to then build their lodge for Nauvoo, which was dedicated on May 1st, 1846, with the inverted pentagrams of Lucifer, the goat beast. And Lucifer being the son of the morning star, illumination, Illuminati. And that's why I've been warning Mormons this whole time, is that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is this enemy threat to America, using religion as their cover, having demonstrated the signs and symbols of having conquered the Smiths who saved America. The Seagull Gate for example. That's the symbol of conquering Joseph, and conquering government, and conquering the religious organization, to restore the evil empire, the evil kingdom, in a future time, letting the Scottish Rites know we're good to go. And sure enough, little by little over time, they've waited for the signs and symbols in biblical prophecy, because they caught on. And those are the dates that they then began. They implemented their puppet president, put him on the throne, in the government, which is Putin. Russia has the seal of the Scottish Rites. And Trump, wanting a Trump Tower in Russia, is doing exactly what Putin wants for America, which is destroy it. And that's what Trump is doing. That's why he infected us with coronavirus. That's why he's refusing to give the equipment to test us and to treat us. That's why he's wanting the government reopened. That's why he keeps telling you, try this drug, which kills people. And calling it a hoax, and getting protesters to say, hey, we want to die, and getting people to go on Fox News and say, hey, I'm going to sacrifice my life, rather than shut down this economy of slavery and extortion. And why businesses own basic necessities and are refusing to give welfare during this time of crisis because they want to keep making money. America is getting destroyed because of the plot organized on May 1st, 1776, the day that Russia celebrates Victory Day and established the seal of the Scottish Rites, the day that Brigham Young dedicated the Nauvoo Temple, and the day that Governor Herbert is going to lift all restrictions in Utah. The date when the judge at the federal district court says he's going to reevaluate and possibly lift so that the lawsuits can commence again. The day when Judge First no longer is employed, and my case will have to be reassigned if she continues to ignore giving an order of final judgment against the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Remember, I have a lawsuit. I have other videos, guys. But nobody's listening at this point anyway, according to YouTube's analytics. So that's the importance of Joseph Smith Sr. saving America, is that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints was organized as a military defense against the threat back in 1826 that was going to reemerge again in America. And they have, and his church is gone. He was assassinated, and it was taken over. Book of Mormon fulfilled, as I am the last man to record the entire destruction of my people, both Ether and Moroni. So I'll retitle this and hope that I can get more people to pay attention.